Greetings, you wonderful warriors of the broken sword. I am Jonathan.
I'm Nick.
And we are the Gosslings, a digital speakeasy. That's either... Oh, that's Nick's.
That's my phone.
I double-checked mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway,
we are a digital speakeasy of awesome interviews and creative works and Christian esoterica and all the weird things in between that you're not allowed to talk about in the pew or at the water cooler.
We are a couple of free-thinking Christian authors with a super chat of radical free-thinking, truth-seeking wizards.
Yes. Forgeticus.
Speaking of chat, let's see who's on with us tonight.
Dude, we've had an awesome chat. Some of you guys have been waiting around for quite a minute, and it has been so funny reading. Tricky's a comedic genius. Of course you're British, Tricky.
It's great.
You got that Monty Python gene.
Tricky, good evening. Glad you're with us. Cactus, what's up, man? American Cars.
Yeah.
Good evening. Fernacool69 is on. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Very cool. I saw Chris Cap's name in there. Vinny Boomba.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Who else we got? Sonny.
Oh, Sonny, what's up?
Greetings.
Yeah.
Kathy Marcello. Hello.
Kathy,
Richard
hello.
Gross. Linda McLeod. Good evening.
Hey,
Diane.
Hey, Lisa.
Cheryl Savage. Man, we got all kinds of... Man, this is great. You guys are going to love this interview tonight.
Yeah.
And Quicks... Did I say that right? Quick 66. Hiya.
Hiya.
Mm-hmm. Good evening.
Combat Medic 91 Bravo.
Nice.
Coming in from the communist state of Washington. Godspeed to you, Combat Medic.
Good evening.
We might need your services sooner rather than later on the home front.
Brian Jones, Randall Hill. Glad you guys are watching tonight. This is a second. We're going to play the interview with Tim Cohen here in a second. It's our second interview with Tim. It's awesome.
Yeah.
We talk about the agenda of the beast.
Yes.
Which you guys, I hope you guys are really going to enjoy. Before we jump into all that, though, we got to do our toast.
Yes, that's right. Mm-hmm. We're going to rock, paper, scissors it.
Yeah, let's see who leads the toast.
Right.
1, 2, 3, shoot.
Yes.
There we go.
1, 2, 3, shoot.
That's two in a row I've lost.
You get the lead.
All right. Grab your drinking vessels, fill them with the beverage of your choice, and join us for our toast.
Mm-hmm.
Take up the broken sword of your father.
And strike down the darkness.
Cheers, brother.
Cheers.
And cheers to you guys tonight.
Yeah.
Glad you're here. Real quick, we're going to go through the obligatories.
Yes.
If you have not yet, we'd love it if you'd subscribe. It helps us tremendously. It'll help get Tim's interview out to more and more people.
Yeah.
And we do take up the broken sword of your finger and strike down the subscribe button. And if you want to be notified of future interviews, hit the bell.
Yeah,
do all that good stuff. And if you've already done all those things, hit the like button.
No.
Hit the like button. That would be a tremendous help if you would like the video right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to play the interview anyway. I'm not going to hold it hostage. But if you'd hit the like button, we'd really appreciate it.
We like to think of the thumbs up as a thumb in the eye to the beast system. And then if you like comment and share, like if you do all those algorithm defeating things, it's sort of like you're grabbing the back of the head of the beast and you're just like really getting in there, just like getting all the way to the back. You know,
it's getting so worked up.
Sorry.
Like if the algorithm was somehow how the beast is programmed.
I just picture like fighting Cerberus, you know, and you're just like wrestling like Hercules with the lion, except it's a demon lion from the abyss. Where am I?
I don't think he got his writing in today.
No, clearly not. Sorry, everyone.
But hit the like button, pretend it's a middle finger, and give the beast a middle finger. Give the algorithm a middle finger.
Yeah.
Let's do our sponsors real quick.
Oh yes. So you noticed that we were drinking out of our normal Gosslings mugs, which are very cool. You can get those on our Teespring page. However, we have flanking Leonidas here as a couple of 2 towers of Lacedaemonian awesomeness.
Ooh, nice.
These Spartan Kothon mugs.
Yeah.
Nick, why don't you tell us about these?
Yeah, these are the Kothon Spartan mugs. So in the historical record, the Kothon was the mug that the Spartan carried with them among only a very few items beyond just their shield, their spear, and their whatever that is, Speedo that they'd wear, and helmet. They did carry the mug as well, but we don't know what they actually look like. So Joel Cherico, a master potter, ChericoPottery.com, designed these in collaboration with Stephen Pressfield, who wrote The Gates of Fire, who is a subject matter expert, in our opinion, of the Spartans. And this is what they came up with. They're beautiful. Everyone is handmade, hand-painted.
Yeah.
Go get one for yourself. Yep. Drink like a man. Get a Kothon Spartan mug. Go to ChericoPottery.com.
Yeah, ChericoPottery.com. Very cool
Speaking
place.
of Leonidian, that beer's looking lush, brother.
Yes, this is the most Laconian thing about me. You know, perhaps arguably the only Laconian thing about me.
Is it Laconian or Lacedaemonian?
Well, you can say whichever.
You can say either?
Yeah.
Or
I think the original was Lacedaemonian, and then later on it got shortened to Laconian, and now we just say Spartan and cool.
What do you guys say in the chat? Laconian?
Yeah.
Lacedaemonian?
Yeah.
Spartan?
My first Xbox tag name, by the way, my only Xbox tag name, Xbox Live, when I got Halo 2, was Lacedaemonian, because I was such a dork. Because in Halo, your character is a Spartan.
That's
and like I was all into the Spartans because I was a huge Stephen Pressfield fan.
Yeah.
So I named it Lacedaemonian. Well, here's the thing:
nobody can pronounce it.
No one can say that. That's a lot of syllables.
Yeah.
When you're like, "Where's the sniper?"
Yeah.
You know. And so it got shortened to Lake. And then it just became Lake ever since. I was like, this is pretty cool. It turns out Lake is also the same color as blood. So if you look up the origin, it's weird. Anyways, what were we talking about? Oh, yeah. Jardani Jovanovic. So, Jardani Jovanovic hair care products. Hair and skincare products made by real men for real men. Mike Fisher is the owner and proprietor of Jardani Jovanovic hair and skincare products. We have a bunch of them behind us here. You can see the product, the fruits of his labor right here. And small Christian family-run business out of Arizona. He's super cool. He's a great friend of the channel. Go to his website, JardaniJovanovic.com. Make yourself as sexy as you are deadly. Give 007 a run for his money. Awaken your inner John Wick.
Yeah.
Or as Nick likes to say,
you can stop breaking the 10th commandment and get yourself some Jardani Jovanovic. Or give your better half. Men, give your better half a reason to doubt that. Jardani Jovanovic.
Jardani Jovanovic, haircareproducts.com. Awesome place. Yes.
Very, very
Go
cool.
check it out.
I see a couple familiar names.
Bradley is here.
Yep.
Nice.
Callie Girl, the trump card. J. Reese Bradley.
Harvey Weinstein is here.
Weinstein.
What's up, Harvey?
Nice.
Good to see you, dude.
Daniela. And I thought I saw another man.
Mama Shaw OC.
Mama Shaw OC.
Man, you and Jay Reese, it's been forever since we've seen you guys in the live chat. It's good to see you.
Yeah.
I know we start later in the day now, so it's probably a little tougher for some of our East Coast friends to,
West Coast. Buckle up. This is not a short interview. It's in 2 parts.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and play it now. Our interview with Tim Cohen talking about the AntiChrist agenda.
Yeah.
We'll be with you guys in the chat, and we'll come. We'll take an intermission about halfway through.
Yeah, we'll come back, and in the meantime, enjoy Tim Cohen, author of The AntiChrist and a Cup of Tea, as we talk about the AntiChrist agenda, depopulation, and more.
Here we go.
Your YouTube feed is crap. Stop wasting your time watching bot-boosted shills and self-appointed gurus cloying for your attention. Instead, join the Gosslings interview, live stream, and podcast. The Gosslings, a dark-lit digital speakeasy of free thinkers. A super chat of radical truth-seeking wizards who eat trolls for second breakfast. Topics that'll make your mama's hair stand on end. Ideas that'll make your pastor's knees knock. Guests that will illuminate the hidden chambers of your mind. And interviews that strike down the darkness. Welcome to the Gosslings.
I tell you, we really would love to get you back in early May after the coronation, if you are available, because
we would be Charles was coronated on the 6th.
Yeah, May 7th is a Sunday.
May 7th, the next day is a Sunday. I don't know if you're
available.
You may already be tied up that day, but
yeah,
we're gonna be watching the coronation.
I think he chose May 6th to mock me.
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I won't go into why, but I'm quite serious.
Is that your birthday? Is that your birthday?
Oh, you
should.
I'm not saying. Okay. I think he chose that to mock me, but other people think it's because they can associate it with 666, right?
Oh, sure.
So
yeah.
5, 6, 23. You add up the numbers, you get 18 divided by 3, you get 666, 366.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, who knows, right?
Who knows?
But
well, maybe we can get you back on May 7th.
That'd be really cool to like right after the coronation, because we're probably going to have a lot of questions about what we see.
Yeah.
That'd
So
be cool.
something to think about, buddy. Christ. America in Cars, one of our Patreons, had asked, based on Charles' advanced age, can you provide a brief timeline of how you think things will play out and how fast it'll happen? He says, obviously, no one's going to hold you to this, but our friend, he likes to play the what if game, so to speak, and
well, your friend needs to start by watching our prior interview to see the evidence that Charles is the Antichrist. It's unambiguous. So first thing is, there's no possibility Charles isn't the Antichrist. And I have not given the evidence really in this interview for that. Go see the prior ones so that you can see that what I'm saying is on the level. Yeah. Do that first. Second thing is, people ask, well, isn't he going to kick the bucket? He's so old. What are you going to do if he dies, right? What are you going to say then?
Right.
And my response to that is, well, he is going to receive a fatal wound and ostensibly seem to die. That's in Scripture, Revelation 13, as the first beast. And the manner of the recovery from that will be so strange that the world will begin to follow after him. Presumably, it'll seem miraculous. At that point, he'll be possessed by the devil and become the second son of perdition of Scripture. The first was Judas, who was possessed by the devil, who went to betray Christ for the crucifixion at the midpoint of the crucifixion week. The Antichrist will go to betray the church and Israel at the midpoint of the tribulation week, or at the start of the Great Tribulation, when he recovers and is possessed by the devil. So, to your question, both his parents lived to be more than 20 years beyond his current age.
Yeah.
So, does that mean Charles probably has at least 20 years in him if the Lord doesn't kill him first, and cast him down to hell at Armageddon? Yes.
Yeah.
But of course, the Lord is going to kill him first. And I don't think that we have 20 years. So the first thing is, he's not too old. Second thing is, his parents outlived his current age by quite a bit. Third thing is, he's already running the world behind the scenes. As I talk about in our prior interview and in some others, he's in control. He's already over the WHO. He's already over the WEF. He's already over the UN behind the scenes. He's over the whole global eco-fascist agenda. He's over the entire false Mideast peace process, which he personally initiated in 1987. So the people who are over the quartet are under him as his subjects. Even George Soros, the person who runs Soros's agendas, who runs Soros's businesses, his efforts to undermine societies, is a British subject of Charles.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. We can go right down the line. It all sits under Charles.
Yeah.
So having said that, timeline. First thing we're looking for is the covenant of Daniel 9:27. I had thought the Great Reset could be that, because most of the world is signed on to it. It's under Charles. The Great Reset is. It's his agenda. If that were true, we'd have World War III breaking out already. And what happened in Ukraine would, in fact, be the start of World War III. And any day now, we'd be seeing war with North Korea and Iran. And I'd be surprised those wars haven't already started. Mm-hmm. So for those reasons, I don't think we're already in the tribulation week. I think that covenant is yet to come, probably. We'll see. That's the first point. Second point is, things that we'll see before we get to the Great Tribulation are the outbreak of World War III. North Korea and Iran are key to that. And I wrote my book, it's available now, called North Korea, Iran, and the Coming World War, where I lay out what happens and who the actors are who are involved with it, and how it starts with North Korea and Iran. And of course, that turns into World War III very quickly. So that's all in that book. And there's a counterpart series coming to that called Israel, quote unquote, Peace and the Coming World War. The Great Tribulation is near. So one is Asian-centric, more or less, and European-centric, and the other is more Mideast-centric. And the latter, that Israel, quote unquote, Peace and the Coming World War, is a multi-volume series that should come out hopefully this year, but it'll be retitled when it comes out. So there's that. Okay. After those wars occur, we see global famine. So all the things that we've talked about that lead to the collapse of the food production systems and global mass starvation, we've only seen a tiny bit of it so far.
Yeah.
What's coming, and people can see enough to see where it's going if they're thinking individuals and they listen to what I already shared in this program. and understand that what the green agenda is about is not saving the climate, it's about killing humanity.
Yeah.
If they understand that, then they look at what's actually happening, everything will make sense. And it can happen quite quickly. So, I mean, really, really fast. It can happen really, really quickly.
Yeah.
So that being said, we'll see the things that are under the third seal, which include famine, and other things happening. And that'll be under it's roughly a seal per year. So roughly the third year of the tribulation week. By the time we get to the fourth horseman, the fourth year, and Charles is the fourth horseman. So let me share my screen one more time here. Can you see my screen or no?
No.
I'm doing it wrong. Okay, sorry. I did the wrong button. Here we go. And
there we
go. Okay. So this unicorn on his heraldic achievement, his coat of arms, is actually pale green gray. It's not gray. It's not ashen per se.
Yep.
It's actually got a greenish hue. And in the printed cover of the book, you can't easily see that if you can see it at all, because the CMYK colors used for printing book covers ordinarily cuts that part of the color spectrum out.
Yeah.
So you don't see it. But in an RGB image of this coat of arms, this heraldic achievement, you can see it very clearly. It's the color of rotting human flesh.
Yep.
I point that out because the fourth horseman, the horse that he rides, and this unicorn is part horse. It's got goat's feet and so on. The body is that of a horse. The point is, it's pale green gray, and the rider's name is Death. And Satan is called Death. In 1 Corinthians, he's the last enemy to be destroyed and to be cast down, the devil, when he gets cast down to the pit of hell, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Antichrist is named Death because he's possessed by Satan at that time. Charles, in other words, is not the first horseman of the apocalypse. He is the fourth. And he is the Antichrist who's going to be over a global government. People get confused and they say, what about Barack Obama, right? Or what about this person or that person? So let me come back to that very quickly here. I have, in my available presentations on my YouTube channel, a presentation I gave in November last year. Let's just get past this little advertisement for a moment. I'll mute it. All right, this presentation right here, titled, Is King Charles III the Antichrist? Over multiple Antichrists.
Yeah.
It's an hour and 13 minutes long. In it, I identify the other three horsemen for the first three seals. Obama and Biden are tied to the white horse. And I show photographic proof. And I have another book coming that deals with the first and third horsemen. Okay, so here's Obama, where I dress him in the crown, the Stephanus, victor's crown, and so forth. This is the goddess of victory. At any rate, I go through the actual imagery and I show the actual white horse. The black horse of the third seal of the apocalypse is not black. That's a poor translation of the Greek text. It's actually a cerulean blue, dark blue horse that has hues like you'd see in sunset, fiery red hues, gray hues, black hues, mixed with that cerulean blue. And in fact, it's the precise coloration of Lucifer.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
This is the horse of the third seal of the apocalypse.
Interesting.
You're looking at it.
That's in Denver, right?
Yep. Denver International Airport, baby.
That's correct. But there is another one made by the same artist, just like it, outside a university in Oklahoma. Not a lot of people know that, a college or university. It's situated in the breadbaskets of the United States, in other words. That's where they located it in both cases.
Gotcha.
Now, the rider of that horse has scales, right?
Yeah.
The rider of that horse is Anubis. And by the way, I presented this in 2010 for the first time publicly. So I've known for more than a decade about this And at Denver International Airport, there was a point where they put this huge statue of Anubis.
Oh, yeah.
As if it had dismounted from Lucifer. And they literally moved Anubis over time from here to be peering into one of the wings, the glass pane, like a story or two up at passengers, as if Anubis had dismounted Lucifer to go look through the window.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, I remember that.
Weird.
So they directly associated Anubis with that horse. And
About that.
Okay, so there are a lot of connections between Hitler and the Third Reich and Obama and Biden. This is actually what Hitler used during World War II. The Democratic Party for the DNC in 2008 reproduced this in the center of Invesco Field with a white horse overlooking it for Obama and Biden.
Oh, yeah. So it's a thematic thing.
It is.
Yeah.
So here it is in Invesco Field. Obama and Biden speaking here. They had the Eagles behind them on the top of the U.S. flagpole. But overlooking this, and I've got other photos in this presentation so people can go see it. Overlooking this is the white horse, the Mustang. This is the mascot of the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
It's viewed as a white Arabian horse or as a Mustang, and its name is Thunder. That's the name of the mascot. And they have an actual white Arabian horse or Mustang that they parade on the field before the games, named Thunder. And now it's Thunder 1, Thunder 2. This thing is the horses have died over the years. They keep replacing it, right? But the point is, Rahm Emanuel's name, his name Emmanuel, or Ram, pardon me, means thunder. And Barack's name means lightning, lightning and thunder for Barack Obama. Under this white horse, Obama given the victor's crown, even though he didn't deserve it, including the Nobel Peace Prize, which has the same symbol. Okay, people have looked at that crown and the first seal since coronavirus and tried to take that coronavirus and say Corona crown. So the first seal is about the virus, as they think, right? What they don't understand is that the particular crown there for the first horseman in Revelation chapter 6 is not Corona, it's Stephanos. It's a completely different kind of crown. It's a victor's wreath, like what was won in the games in ancient Rome, ancient Greece, but also like a crown of thorns. And Obama was shown atop a white horse in artwork in 2008 in relation to his run for president. He was shown atop a white horse wearing a Stephanos and also wearing at times a crown of thorns. And so you have, in other words, associated with this event, lightning, thunder, the white horse, the victor's crown, and other things that I go into in this presentation. And the point is, Obama wanted a third term, right? Can't legally have one in the United States. So he's on record on camera stating that he would be a president having a third term through a puppet. He'd be the puppet master behind the scenes.
Yeah, we're living it.
If he could. We're living it. Biden is that person, and Obama's the one actually running the show, Obama and his people behind the scenes currently. So right
Him
now,
and Big Mike.
So long as Biden is in office, we could see this begin to take place. In other words, the fulfillment of the events under the first seal. And that's the point I'm driving at. So you asked for the events that are coming. We've got the things to come with the first seal, the things to come with the second, global war, World War III, the thing to come with the third, global famine. We've seen, I'll say, foreshadowings of it at this point. All of those things, we're seeing foreshadowings in the last couple of years, but we're getting closer and closer, like birth pangs. Right? When they get closer and closer together till the time comes to the birth. And then we reach the Great Tribulation and what happens through the next 3.5 years. And then finally, at the end of the Great Tribulation, the actual birth, if you will, typologically. So Charles is the fourth horseman, but, pardon me, I do go into the other three, and I have a separate book coming on the first and the third that covers way more than I can go into in this presentation. I won't share everything because I've got some things no one else knows that'll be in that book, but there's only one little piece. It's much, much more extensive than that. And so the book deals with depopulation, transhumanism, and global enslavement of the survivors. But that isn't the full agenda. The full agenda is human replacement with humanoids under the devil and fallen angels and so forth. Very much the same agenda that the fake aliens have.
Yeah.
And kind of merging those two agendas into one, so that at the end of the day, there are no humans left on planet Earth, just humanoids worshiping the devil and his fallen angels. And making them their own god over Earth, if you will. Yeah, just like they tried to do on Mars and other planetary bodies before the flood. So,
one thing that reminds me of, Tim, is the gap theory. I'm sure probably anybody who's watching this at this point has probably heard of the gap theory, at least in passing, that between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2 is a whole pre-Adamic civilization. And the theory gets like expounded upon, and it gets tied into like Bigfoot. And apparently Lucifer was in charge of this worldly kingdom, and he tried to create his own, race of people. And then it sort of caved in on itself due to his pride and the fall of, his 1/3. And, then it sort of plays out normally after that. And it picks up with, the face of the waters of the deep, and all that stuff. But is what you're describing sort of along those same veins as the gap theory, or is it obviously it's on the back end of history as opposed to prehistory, or is there something else at play there?
No, biblical history is just under 6 millennia long.
Yeah.
Okay. There was no pre-Adamic race, and I know there are people out there who are trying to promote that. Ostensible Christians, some Christians, they're confused. There was no such thing, and all of the things that I show, and again, I'm coming along with real evidence. I'm not the guy who comes and says, "Oh, I think this is true."
Yeah.
Or this is my opinion. Just like with the Antichrist, I'm not saying I think Charles is the Antichrist. I'm saying here's the proof. Right?
Right. Yeah.
So when I come along on these matters, I'm presenting multiple photographs from multiple space agencies, not NASA only. So people think, there's a whole host of things we get into on that when we talk about that part, but these things all transpired between the fall of Adam and Noah's flood. They seeded our whole solar system in that period of time, so much so that Mars became densely populated. The surface of the moon became densely populated. Our moon was habitable prior to Noah's flood on Earth. It had an atmosphere. It had a liquid water ocean. In fact, they've admitted in the last 5 years or so, some macroevolutions have come out and said, well, we think there's enough frozen ice just under the surface of the moon to cover the entire surface of the moon, in tens of meters of water. The whole surface. There's still enough ice on the moon for that. And that they believe it had a liquid water ocean. Well, they're behind the curve. The whole moon is encrusted with fossils, out of that liquid water ocean when the moon was damaged in connection with what happened in our solar system. So the moon was habitable. It was populated. Mars was populated, more habitable than it is now. Venus presumably was habitable. Planets, one or more planets that existed no longer exist, were blown to bits between Mars and Jupiter that were also seeded and densely populated, which is why comets and asteroids are full of complex biological fossils exposed on their surfaces. And it isn't NASA only that's photographed these. There are minimally 3 space agencies that have done so on multiple comets, more than a dozen. So every single one that we have visited and photographed as humanity, modern humanity, has these things. There are no exceptions. And the only exceptions I could envision at this point would be maybe the core. If they like a metal asteroid, for example, that would be core material from a blown up planetary body, would likely not have those things in it. But everyone that we visited and photographed does. And these surfaces aren't smooth like they expected. They're very, very rough. They're not densely packed like they expected. They're loosely packed. That debris coalesced as it was blown into space, and those planetary bodies blew up. So for the most part, it's not densely packed. And if they land something with any impact on one of those bodies, it's going to sink right into the surface. No problem. And in fact, NASA, well, maybe it was, I think it was JAXA, I have to go look it up, but they hit one comet's surface with a projectile to blast stuff off the surface and capture it for return to Earth. Okay. They filmed this event. And some of the stuff that blew off the surface were skulls, well-formed skulls. And if you look closely, frame by frame, you'll see a few instances of skulls with eye sockets, nose socket, mouth, just like you'd see on Earth, blown off the surface. You know, as if you dug up a human skull, for example, only this was a creature. You know, and that's not even the good stuff, frankly. So, but the fact of the matter is, they blew that right off the surface. And these surfaces are also highly colorful. They're not uniform in color in many cases. And the reason for that is they're looking at fossils, at different creatures where the colors have been preserved. They don't understand what they're dealing with. They recognize that there are complex molecules associated with life, you know, like organic molecules, for example. On all of these bodies that they've examined closely enough to test for that, they've found this. So the chemistry is more complicated than what they should expect for just bodies that form from coalescing gases and this kind of thing over billions of years, which wouldn't have all that stuff. So instead of admitting to any of these things or dealing with what's really there, you know, they play a game with the public, very much like with the Viking landers, you know, on Mars in the 1970s. They had 3 tests for life. In this case, they were testing for bacterial life. One of the tests was known to be flawed, incapable of detecting life, even on Earth. It could not detect life here on Earth. And they realized that later. The other 2 experiments were great successes in detected microbial life. What did NASA do? Oh, yeah, well, this test failed, so we didn't find evidence of microbial life. They lied through their teeth this whole time.
20 billion a year.
Even though the one test is known to be fatally flawed and unusable, even on Earth. You know, the one device. Both Viking landers with those 2 tests detected life. Active microbial life on Mars.
Can I ask, let me ask you a question about that. Why, and this is, you know, obviously I haven't really thought as deeply about this and seen any of these things. Why wouldn't they want that to be public though? Doesn't that validate their idea that there's life on other planets
in evolution?
Yeah, and they're coming to help us out. I mean, doesn't that validate kind of their narrative?
So here's NASA. We already know there's complex biological life on Mars. Hey, maybe it might be dangerous to go there. Maybe we don't want to mess up the ecosystem because we don't know how it got there. It could be evolutionary, right? This is NASA's thinking. Maybe our budgets will be cut because now we can't justify spending all that money to develop the rockets and go to Mars. There are a whole host of political, quote unquote, reasons and budgetary reasons. They might want to just slow walk that for as long as they can get away with it.
Maybe. Yeah.
And when you talk about complex biological stuff, same deal, only more so. When you get into it in comets and asteroids, well, that just blows their minds, you know, if they wanted to admit to any of that, because all of a sudden every claim for how our solar system formed by macroevolutionists over billions of years falls apart. Because comets and asteroids aren't building blocks like they claim in every single one of those models.
Yeah, it's like a game of whack-a-mole that gets out of hand. Yeah. They can't control the narrative.
I always wondered that about the asteroid belt, the Kuiper belt.
Well, you know, the Oort Cloud, for example, they can't even prove it exists. It's hypothetical.
Really?
You know, when they talk about the fact that we can see comets in our solar system, when they fly into the inner solar system and we photograph or see them, right? If you're talking billions of years, none of them should exist. They should all have melted away, turned to gas long ago.
Yeah.
So how do they explain it? Oh, they're being replenished on a regular basis from the Oort Cloud, which we can't see.
Oh,
because it's too far out, you know, from Earth. We're not able to photograph it.
It's like a child.
In other words,
builds a narrative.
That's a bit of a Deus Machina, if you ask me.
It's literally an argument from silence, and the public doesn't realize. And when I say from silence, from a complete lack of evidence or data, they've got this hypothetical cloud that's out there that's replenishing comets into the inner solar system so that we can see them, you know, every so often. And this is how they explain comets existing, you know, for billions of years. But nobody's photographed the Oort Cloud. Nobody's got any proof it actually exists.
Right. Meanwhile, we're using, you know, types of lasers to try and cut into the fabric of space so that we can, monitor and expose, dark matter. It's like, oh, okay, so we're gonna figure out dark matter, but we still can't figure out the Oort Cloud. Okay.
Well, there are a whole bunch of issues, like the constants aren't necessarily what they think they are, like the Hubble constant. When they're trying to explain the contraction or expansion of the universe on the basis of a bunch of theory that presumes billions of years of age, well, all kinds of things don't actually work in terms of the constants. So they're constantly messing with stuff. And one of their big approaches is this, again, argument from silence. Oh, it must be dark matter, which we can't see. We can't prove it exists. We must have that extra mass in the universe. So after billions of years, the universe hasn't completely dispersed into, so widely apart that it's just flown a whole so far apart that we can't see galaxies, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
That all this egg stuff has turned to flan.
Yeah.
They're having to explain more mass to have greater gravity to keep things together over billions of years, and their explanation is an argument from silence. On the other hand, if you go with scripture, which indicates that we're only dealing with a solar system for sure, and probably a universe that's only thousands of years old, that God instantly more or less put into place, there's no contradiction. There's no problem.
Right.
And we know from scripture that the universe will fold up. It will collapse eventually, and God will replace it. He'll fold it up like a garment, and he'll make it new. And scripture tells us he will fold it up like a garment at some point, the universe, and make it new. So we know it will collapse at some point. So there's so much in scripture that they ignore, and they make all these arguments from silence, and then they engage in this pseudo stuff. Well, what I'm about to give the world is proof that all their stuff is nonsense. Because if you can't explain the formation of our solar system on the basis of billions of years, coalescing gases, if you can't use comets and asteroids as building blocks, suddenly there is no model.
Yeah. You know what? I'm so glad you brought that up. We interviewed Mark Sargent, who is, a big flat earth guy. And one of the things that we kind of touched on with him, not to say that you're necessarily a flat earth guy, but
I'm not, just to clarify, I'm absolutely not.
Right.
Okay, understood.
Yeah. But we talked about something with him that I think is relevant here that one of our patrons brought up, which was the whole demon math thing, that there is there is this almost like sorcerous mathematics that are implemented to sort of trick you into believing, this billions of years of, billions and billions of stars across the universe, and it's like, it's such like ridiculous numbers that like, okay, well, good luck proving or disproving any of it. It's meant to like pacify you, like pablum, puked up into a baby bird's mouth,
Well, as time has gone on, the universe has seen bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. In other words, the number of countable stars that we can actually see with our telescopes has increased exponentially.
Interesting.
They don't know how big the universe is. And every time we get a better telescope up there in space or, on the ground, whatever, and can see further out, well, guess what? There's more galaxies.
Yeah.
They have actually no idea in reality how big the universe is.
But then at the same time, entropy is one of those laws of the universe, that seems to justify a biblical model more than it does, an atheistic model of the universe.
Okay, so when we talk entropy, we're talking the second law of thermodynamics. And it's, when you boil it down, it basically says order tends toward disorder, or to a mean, to an average. So if you got hot and cold, you mix them, you get warm, right?
Yeah.
So you go from a state of higher structure to lower or mean or average structure, basically chaos.
And
right?
decay. Yeah.
And decay. So that contradicts evolution without even getting into information theory. The notion that matter over time through any set of random processes can become organized in more complex ways rather than destroyed to be less organized over time through impacts, yada, yada, at any level, whether you're talking the molecular level or the macro level, impacts break things apart, or they reduce energy to an average in the case of the molecular level. You're decaying and breaking everything down over time. And that is the opposite direction. That's increasing entropy. That is the opposite direction of life.
Yeah.
So life itself contradicts the second law of thermodynamics. It can't evolve. It's not possible. And that's without even getting into information theory, which is that even if you can produce the machinery, the genetics involved are basically incredibly complex programs encoded at the molecular level in highly complex machines that are like cities. Cells are like little cities, literally. They're that complicated inside. They're like a city with vehicles and everything else at the molecular level. One cell. And to suggest that stuff can evolve is silly to any real scientist. So I'm going to say macroevolutionists are not real scientists. They're fake scientists.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about thermodynamics and all of this, when you get into information theory and you want to program something, look at the most complex programs man has devised, like an operating system like Windows 11 or OS 10 or whatever, right? That's very complicated stuff. Taking, in some cases, millions of man hours to produce, right? With a lot of thought and intent behind it. And you can break programs so easily with one instruction or two instructions that go, that are the wrong thing at the wrong time in the wrong place. Okay, everything has to be perfect for the function to continue in whatever it is that is being done at the moment in an operating system, whatever. That's primitive stuff compared to the programs of life that are encoded in a molecular machine, effectively. Yeah, and programs are information, and that's really my point. Information doesn't happen through natural processes. It cannot happen through natural processes. And we're not talking about simple information. We're talking about extraordinarily complex information that's beyond our ability still to understand.
Yeah.
Other than to recognize that it's there. That's about as far as human understanding can even get at this point with genetics. Yeah, in terms of the overall program, like to produce a human being or a dog or a cat or whatever.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. It's so funny because like none of this is what we had planned to talk about. This is so cool. Like, this is so fascinating. There's even scientists can't make a case for, what is it? Abiogenesis, they have to come up with, strange theories that basically amount to, well, we think the primordial soup was struck by lightning, but then on the other hand, you have epigenetics, the idea that you can, transfer information, genetically through hereditary means and, and behavioral patterns and all this stuff. And, both of those concepts seem like they're on shaky ground. And I don't know, how does that play into
epigenetics are critical.
Yeah.
For example, when we program in modern object-oriented languages, we have things like attributes that might go above a piece of code. And the attribute might tell a compiler how to deal with a piece of code. That would be the equivalent of epigenetics. So you could turn on or off a piece of code, for example, with something like an attribute. And that's, you have attributes, properties, yada, yada. You got a whole bunch of stuff that goes on top of the code to control how the code executes and even what piece of the code is on or off. Okay. That's a primitive way for us to describe it, but epigenetics are like that. And it is heritable. In fact, epigenetics can be used to de-age the human body. They're starting to figure that out.
Really?
To reverse human aging. So, completely reverse it. And so it is heritable. And it's an information layer that sits atop the genetic code, like the DNA, the RNA. And it's all incredibly complicated. And they're only starting to figure some of these things out, right?
Yeah.
They even discover new tissues in the body that they didn't know existed every few years. New layers of cells.
Wow.
New organs they didn't know existed. They're still discovering things like that, even in the human body. So the point is, it's all tremendously complicated. And for, even with the simple stuff that we've known for decades and decades, to suggest that it evolved is honestly idiocy. It's the definition of idiocy. It's the definition of willful blindness to God as creator. For example, a programmer, and I come from an IT background, has no excuse to think that life evolved. A programmer who thinks life evolved is an idiot and doesn't know what programming is really about, to be honest. They might be able to go through the motions and program stuff, but the brain hasn't connected the reality to life.
Yeah.
They haven't added 2 + 2 together and realized 4. Oh, God exists. He's the creator. Just like I have to build this program, it can't happen by itself.
Well, and the numinous nature of the soul also, I mean, you want to talk about life, where does life come from? The breath of life, the spark of life, that's why Christians tend to be such champions for pro-life movements, Yep. Because there obviously is a spark there and a breath there, and you can see it when it leaves. If you've ever watched somebody die, you can see it when it goes.
Well, there's a claim that the soul has a certain amount of mass.
Yeah, what is it, 15 grams, something like that?
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but the claim is out there. They claim that
Right.
when a body dies, a certain amount of mass exits the body.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is, right? Is it the air that was in the body? I really have no idea.
Right. Yeah.
But it is an interesting claim. What I can say is, you were bringing up some of these early experiments, like they would try to create the quote unquote primordial soup, they presume, for an early Earth and strike it with electricity, the equivalent of lightning, to try to produce chemicals in a flask, like simple proteins. And say, oh, we got a few proteins, the equivalent of amino acids. They have produced some amino acids that way. The problem is the next instant those things are destroyed because there's no cell wall protecting them.
Oh, interesting. Really?
It's the chicken and the egg thing in a different way. Without the shell, in this case, the encapsulating cell wall, what they produce is randomly dispersed and almost immediately destroyed.
Wow.
In the next instant. They don't talk about that.
Yeah.
And even what they've produced, even if they could preserve it, it's nowhere near what's inside of a simple cell. Doesn't even come close.
Yeah.
Like exponentially, not even close. So, but they pass this stuff off and they hoodwink the public. So Satan is constantly hoodwinking the public. I was thinking about something today, for example. Everybody was talking, say 2 decades ago about global warming, right? Anthropogenic global warming, claiming we've got this global warming emergency. The Earth's going to get too hot, and the Antarctic, et cetera, are going to melt, and the continents are going to flood.
Oh yes,
all this bad stuff's going to happen. Yada yada, right? So it was always global warming this, global warming that. What have they done in the last few years? Oh, it's climate emergency this, climate emergency that. Why? Because people are realizing, oh, you know what? We're having some nasty cold snaps and we're freezing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? We're not warming, we're freezing. So, and then there are other people saying, well, the satellite data actually indicates the Earth is heading toward a deep freeze, another ice age, right?
Another,
whether happens.
Well, there was already a mini ice age, in the 14th, 15th century, I think.
Well, but the point is the satellite data globally shows the Earth is cooling, not heating. Now, we know from scripture, and this is the sleight of hand that I'm talking about, they've switched to climate emergency because if you say climate change, right, and call that an emergency rather than global warming, who can argue with that? We all see climate change every day, right?
You talk about sleight of hand. As a couple of writers, we pick up on that and we're like, I see what you did there. How
exactly.
Convenient.
So they go with the stuff that's hard to refute, when somebody's not actually seriously thinking about what's being said. And in this instance, the Earth is cooling. But we know from scripture, like under the bowls of wrath, that there'll come a point, and the trumpets in Revelation, that there'll come a point where the Earth is burning hot like an oven. And Malachi, right? I think it's Malachi or Micah. I forget. I think it's Micah, actually. But there's a point in scripture where the Earth burns hot like an oven. Before the Lord returns. When Earth's atmosphere is damaged, the planet is damaged from impacts and other things that are going to transpire between now and Armageddon, such as comet and asteroid impacts. Use of weapons of mass destruction, like nuclear warheads, nuclear war. The Earth will be damaged enough and the atmosphere will be damaged enough to where the Earth burns hot like an oven. So what does the devil do? He reads scripture and he says, oh, the Earth's going to burn hot like an oven. Let's use that. Let's use that. Let's claim global warming.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. And the devil's not so smart. He's actually kind of an idiot. Pardon my language. I mean, I know that sounds arrogant, but he's not so smart. He doesn't understand scripture well enough to prevent God from fulfilling his word. So he looks at those things and thinks, let's use it. But what happened when he was using it? People are waking up to the fact the Earth's actually cooling. Let's change how we're using it. Let's call it climate change.
Change.
Yeah, it's like a snake oil
Sleight of
salesman.
change. It's snake oil salesman. And so when we talk about the trends that are happening in the world today, this whole agenda under the devil, there are multiple layers. And they keep introducing these things. They keep the public and mankind off balance so much that nobody can really keep up with it unless they're spending all their time trying to figure this out. That's how it is for most people. So,
well, let me ask you a question. Speaking of that, speaking of their measures, this is the banner under which they're like implementing all these ridiculous changes, the reset and everything else. Can you talk a little bit about how like WEF and other, institutions and so forth under the banner of climate change are trying to remedy that through a depopulation agenda?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're obviously not going to talk publicly about depopulating the world. They certainly talk privately, and they've certainly put it in our faces for those who are paying attention. It's all sleight of hand. It's like people say, look at their actions, follow the money.
Yeah.
Pay attention to those things, not what they say, right? So they're out there saying, we want to save the world from climate change. And they're offering solutions, right? What's the solution? We need to transition to green energy. We need to get off fossil fuels, right? So we're going to tax carbon to reduce carbon emissions coming from fossil fuels. And then new things like methane and nitrogen, okay? So methane from cattle and other animals, humans produce some methane too. Nitrogen from farm animal excrement that runs into rivers or water tables, that kind of thing. Well, on the surface, that sounds possibly a little bit plausible. Like, yeah, methane is a greenhouse gas. Carbon can be a greenhouse gas, right? So they say these things to the public, and their solution is to offer a quick transition to green energy, to remove fossil fuels and coal and so forth from our grids. And they don't explain to the public what all this really entails. The public is left to think, oh, okay, that's where we're going, and to assume that it's even possible, okay? So we think that they want to save life. They want to save mankind, right, from floods on coasts, that populations don't get displaced and have to move and this kind of thing, right? That's what the public's left to think. And they've got school children now being indoctrinated in schools with climate change classes or curricula, scaring them, creating new psychological problems literally in children all over the world. And they're doing it on purpose, right? It's like the Hitler Youth. It's very much like the Hitler Youth, indoctrinated into what they want the party line to be, what they want the public to believe. So what's the actual reality and fruit of all that? Well, and who's directing it? Let's talk about that a little bit too.
Yeah.
All right, so people know about the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset. They heard Klaus Schwab talk about the Great Reset in his book by that title. Most people still don't realize that the Great Reset is actually Charles' agenda, that he personally announced the Great Reset from the World Economic Forum, not Klaus Schwab. Prince Charles did that. It's Charles' agenda, right? What is the Great Reset about? It's about, they call it the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and I'll come back to that. It's about more than just so-called climate change. The thing most people are hearing about with it right now is climate change and reducing carbon footprint and enacting carbon taxes, right? A price to be paid for using fossil fuels to this global entity, ultimately, for their green energy revolution. This is the claim. Okay. They sell it to the public like that. We're here to be your saviors, right? But the devil is a liar. Okay. That's the World Economic Forum, and there's more to it. And the fourth industrial revolution involves ultimately transhumanizing the survivors of mankind as an interim step to completely eliminating humanity and turning humans into basically humanoids, where they want to enhance us, make us kind of like the $6 million man in the 70s, only more biological in the end, right? Right. Sticking computer chips in our brains and connecting us to the internet and
to the
to
metaverse.
Totalitarian monitoring and then control, etc. So we can compete, like Elon Musk says, with artificial intelligences over time.
Yeah.
Right? By the way, did you know Elon Musk was part of the World Economic Forum?
No.
Not surprised.
Yeah, one of their young global leader
Stooges.
participant types.
I'm not surprised.
Musk is against some of their agenda. He's against depopulation.
Right.
But he's a participant in other areas. In the transhumanist agenda, he's a big participant.
Yep.
Oh, for sure.
So,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He's anti-AI, but he's pro-transhumanist.
Yeah. It's almost like
really,
he wants to... Go ahead, Tim. Sorry.
He's not really anti-AI. It's going to happen one way or the other. We need to be able to compete or the AIs will annihilate us.
Right. It's almost like he wants to co-opt AI into and like harness it, with humanity. Yeah, for humans.
Knowing that ultimately humanity will be supplanted by cyborgs.
Mm-hmm.
That's his goal, effectively, to compete with AI. Which again is the same thing as the devil's agenda, ultimately to annihilate humanity, right?
Yeah.
Musk is a stooge to the devil and he doesn't even know it, like these other folks, even though he's not. They're not, the house of Satan is divided. So they're not in complete agreement on how they're going to approach all these things. But at any rate, going back to this, so that's part of the fourth industrial revolution, is to put technology in us. And
yeah. What'd you guys think, huh? Pretty cool for the first half.
Not bad.
Yeah.
We're just starting to get into the real agenda now. We had to kind of wait till we were past a certain point that we know YouTube listens to stuff for strikes. Now we can share some.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating.
It's sort of like hiding, waiting for the hunter killer robots, from Terminator to fly past with their strobes.
Skynet.
Yeah, you're waiting for the Skynet,
Yeah.
To bypass you so that now you can go back to being a normal human being. So yeah, so we are now out from under the sights of Skynet, so we can start operating again. Yeah, dude, we've had an awesome chat, by the way.
Dude, I can't even keep up with the chat.
I know.
It's been... Just do this. About now, can you guys hear us at all? Hello, can you hear us?
Just a ticking noise, no voice audio, just background music.
Oh, how about now? Can you guys hear us?
Oh, maybe.
Maybe.
Yes. Okay. And we're back.
And we're back.
Okay. So
we had looks like we had a software failure. Our audio software went down.
Once again, it's just
anyway.
Yeah.
We want to say thank you to Mike Fisher
Mm-hmm.
for the generous support. We're glad you guys are loving the interview. We've been trying to keep up with the chat.
Yeah.
And struggling to do it. There's just so many great comments, and we're so glad everyone's watching tonight.
And you guys are having a great conversation. It's been awesome watching it. And yes, and we wanted to say thank you to Mike Fisher for the awesome super chat for $4.99. Mike Fisher is the owner and proprietor of Jardani Jovanovic hair care products. JardaniJovanovic.com is the place to get them.
Yep.
So we always want to give Mike a shout out. He's also one of our patrons. And if you guys are not aware, we have a Patreon.
Put that up.
And
quick.
probably, honestly, like a third of the people in the comments right now are probably our Patreon members. And it's such a fun community. Everybody's super cool. Everybody has a great time. It's basically just like what you're experiencing here. And we have all these different tiers. So like if you're interested just in like, let's say you just want to see what the schedule is for the guests. And we're booked out through May right now. And we could be booked out farther, but I kind of wanted to not book out any farther because it kind of gets a little tough maintaining those connections when you're like 6 months down the road. So we'll start booking out again here in the next probably few weeks, maybe a month, you know. And then all the way up to like that's like the lowest tier. And then if you want to go higher, you can sign up for like the upper echelon tiers where you get guaranteed a question to a guest for our interview, and you even get like a sponsorship. Like we'll promote your product on or your business or whatever on our site. So we got a lot of cool stuff there. But honestly, it's just a really fun time.
Free merch.
Yeah, books, discounts on merch, free merch, and then we just designed a Patreon exclusive Gosslings t-shirt, which we thought was really cool. So it's a lot of fun. Yeah. So anyways, let's see. Do you want to talk about the books before we do anything else?
I just got the second half of the interview queued up here. Again, sorry for the technical difficulties.
Everyone. Sorry about
Thanks
that,
for your patience with that. Real quick, let's see. Well, looks like I'm gonna have to add them here. Let's see. Let's do it at the end. They're not. Wait a minute. Here we go. This one and this one. All right, we got it. Thanks for bearing with us.
So this channel actually started out with Nick and I basically being a couple of Christian authors who we wrote fiction, and we would meet every Sunday on a writer's night. And then over time, we started doing this channel just like as a fun way to keep up to date on like what we were doing and things that we thought were interesting. And then the Lord had other plans, and it kind of turned into a YouTube channel, like interview channel. But Nick and I are still authors. We're still writers. And Nick wrote an awesome...
I'll talk about your book first.
You want to talk about... Okay.
Absolutely.
So I wrote a 7-novel series called Heavenly Realms. And the first book in the series is called Empyrean Falling. It is epic Christian fantasy about angelic warfare.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like Gettysburg and 300 and Braveheart meet the Book of Revelations.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun, and it's it's theologically grounded, but it's got all these great action scenes in it, and it's really cool. I kind of wrote it in my 20s, and I wrote the whole series like kind of for me. But it's been really surprising, like how many people of all different ages and demographics are into it.
Yeah.
So
very cool.
It's neat. And then Nick wrote an awesome book called Henry Half Moon.
Indeed.
And I would love to tell people about Henry Half Moon, but I figure you might have an elevator pitch that might be more succinct.
I'm still working on my elevator pitch, but basically it's about a young college student at NYU who is kind of agnostic. But he's called by gods he doesn't even believe in to cross over into the other dimension and fight this new strange race of demon called the Algalim, who are trying to usher in the coming of the Anunnaki, the return of the Anunnaki. And Henry has to go through that struggle, but it's also a faith struggle too. So there's elements of like ancient Sumerian lore, There's, occult, there's Greek mythology, all kinds of things are kind of interweaving in this story, and Henry has to navigate through all of that. And but it is a faith journey as well.
Yeah,
it's a great book.
Yeah, it's really cool. And Nick actually has a lot of traction with his Travelers League series of books, a middle grade fiction for kids. That's really cool. But like, aside from J. Reese Bradley and us, like, no one ever talks about Henry Half Moon, and Henry Half Moon is awesome. So,
it's like right down the middle of most of the stuff we're talking about on the channel,
so if you're a fan of like the stuff that Tim's talking about, if you're a fan of Gary Wayne and Derek Gilbert, all these other awesome people that we interview who are, they delve in this Christian esoterica and this Christian fringe mythology stuff, you'll really enjoy Henry Half Moon. It's pretty neat. So,
and Karen S asked a question, and it should be coming up here in a second. Sorry for the delay.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. Are they good stories for teenage boys like 16 years? Yes. His books and my book. Absolutely.
Mine are probably a little... So, like, mine can be kind of violent. There's no sexual content in mine.
Or mine.
Yeah. And there's very, very light, minor, contextually accurate cursing, but it's nothing gratuitous. But they are kind of violent, and the Heavenly Realms books can be a little wordy at times, lofty aspirations for literature, so they might like bore your teenager. But I was 16 when I read Gates of Fire, and that was a pretty wordy book. So I really liked it. So it kind of depends. But like Nick's Henry Half Moon book is young adult. That is like right up young adult fiction alley. So so you kind of can't go wrong with either one. But Nick's book definitely lends itself more to a teenager than mine would, I think, unless you're a teenager, plays a lot of Rome Total War and is kind of like a cool nerd, then he might, I don't know. So, or he reads Paradise Lost. So anyways.
All right. Well, let's get back to the second part of the interview with Tim Cohen. We're going to talk about the depopulation agenda now. We're going to dive deeper into that. Hope you guys enjoy it. And we will, again, be in the chat. We'll catch you guys on the back end unless, our backup audio software fails. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, just kidding.
We're doing kind of
It's not so much a digital speakeasy as it is a digital silent movie.
Sometimes it's more a silent movie.
Yeah.
Very, very true. Which is
great because I finally shut up.
Here we go. And unlike last time, I'm going to make sure that the mic isn't left on and the camera left on, so no hot mic moments. That was really embarrassing. If you'd like to see that, go back to last week's live stream. About halfway through, about this point into it, you can see me get up, my big butt walking towards the door.
Yep.
Jonathan rubbing his eyes because he's so tired. Fortunately, we don't say anything that we regret.
That's right. Yeah,
but it's a funny moment.
The Lord was merciful.
Our wonderful chat community said, hot mic, turn it off, turn the camera off.
Much like this
Very
time
helpful.
saying like, hey, you guys are muted.
Yeah.
What will we do without you guys is basically what I'm saying.
I don't know. I don't know.
We're taking you all with us. Follow me into the dawn.
All right, here we go. Tim Cohen, part 2.
That's part of the purpose of the mRNA jabs, is to learn how to bioengineer humanity to change us at the genetic level. What they're really doing, though, is killing us at the genetic level. And so we can come back to that in relation to not just the COVID jabs, but the new things they're doing with so-called vaccines that are based on the same technology. Like they're putting it into the flu shots now.
Oh, wow.
Did you know that?
I did not know
Same technology, same dangers.
They're putting mRNA in the flu shots? They're using that technology in the flu shots?
They've just started to do that. Yep.
Oh.
Well, if you're
so you better know what you're taking, because you better know what you're taking, because it could be like those booster shots. So you cannot trust that what you're taking is what what you took as a child. Let me put it that way. And you remember they changed the definition for vaccine.
Oh, that's right.
I didn't hear about that.
They did that because the mRNA jabs aren't vaccines; they're gene therapeutics.
Yeah.
They're meant to change us at the genetic level. But they're more than that. You can have, they think there's such a thing as helpful changes. There aren't. But on top of that, they're wrapping the mRNA in what are toxic chemicals that penetrate the entire body. They don't get stuck like a traditional vaccine in the muscle tissue and stop there to produce an immune system response that then becomes an immune system response that's systemic to the body. The traditional ones, they don't go throughout your whole body unless they accidentally stick it in a vein. Okay, which they're not supposed to do. That's why they look for meaty muscle type areas to do that. Like your shoulder, your hip, right? So, but the mRNA ones, because of the nanolipid particles that they use, which are basically a form of antifreeze that's toxic, with fatty stuff, because of what they're wrapping it in, it penetrates the entire body. And you know where it collects most?
Arteries.
Nope. The reproductive organs.
Really? I was going to say that as
the
a joke.
testes.
Oh, isn't that why there's been like reports of a spike in like ovarian cancer
and sterility? I mean, that was like one of the first things they talked about when
miscarriages, reduction in fertility, even comes to the breast milk into children. So that some women have had their breast milk colors changed. The color of the breast milk from the shots.
Wow.
So the point is,
remember that.
Wow.
The point is, it's reducing the human population by stealth. Is it an accident if their goal is to reduce human population that these things are accumulating in the reproductive organs, even though they're penetrating the whole body, including the brain?
Yeah, totally.
Can that be an accident, or is it pre-planned? There's so many other things to it. But anyway, I digress. So when we talk about these agendas, we were talking about, climate change, right?
Yeah.
And the World Economic Forum. So Charles is over Klaus Schwab. Klaus Schwab is a knight of Charles. Not sure if I told you all that in our last program.
Yeah.
Bill Gates is a knight of Charles also.
One of the Knights of the Garter, I think you said.
No,
right? It's a different order.
They're both just Knights of the British Empire, KBE.
Okay.
People think the British Empire went away, right? Because now we have the Commonwealth.
Right.
Knights aren't KBC, Knights of the British Commonwealth. They're KBE, Knights of the British Empire.
Interesting.
Now there are knights in the orders of chivalry, right? Which is an even more select club, if you will, and generally restricted to royalty and certain politicians, like the Order of the Garter, for example. But there are other knights who are still under the British thumb, in this case, the monarchy's thumb. And that would be people like Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, right? In other words, once they submit as a knight, the devil has influence over them through the British monarchy and other means. The reason I bring up Bill Gates is the World Health Organization, right? And I'm sure you've heard of the pandemic treaty that they're trying to develop through the World Health Organization to get all the nations signed on to it.
Yeah.
They want 197 nations to sign that treaty, and basically it gives sovereignty to the World Health Organization. And I'll come back to that in a moment. It isn't just about pandemics, like they're telling the public, right?
Yeah.
It's global health. That's kind of how they're defining it. It can include the climate, in other words. The World Health Organization can declare, for example, if that treaty passes in the form they're trying to pass it, a global health pandemic. Doesn't even have to be a virus.
Yeah.
And when they declare that, they can lock you down in your homes. They can literally change the laws of countries.
Yeah.
Through something that isn't actually a treaty. They're bypassing, for example, U.S. ratification of treaties, calling it an agreement. The Biden administration, by executive order, is trying to sign the U.S. onto that. And if they do it, by the time we fight it in courts, so much will have been destroyed in this country, it might be too late. Way too late. But the point is, Bill Gates funds the World Health Organization through the Bill and Melinda Gates Organization. He and the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, are the two biggest funders of the World Health Organization. Who is over Bill Gates? Charles. Charles wants to take control of the world. Let's do it through the World Health Organization. Let's do it through the World Economic Forum. His knights are running those things.
Yeah.
How about the United Nations? The United Nations is built on public-private partnerships. A lot of people don't realize that.
Interesting.
It isn't just a supranational government in the making. The United Nations is built on public-private partnerships. Who has been promoting public-private partnerships as a new form of global governance for decades and decades? Charles has, to the whole world.
I've heard Klaus Schwab use that term, mention public-private partnerships quite a bit recently. I think he said it at the last Davos meeting a couple months ago.
All the time. He got it from Charles. Charles has been talking about it since the 1960s.
Wow.
Schwab founded the WEF, depending on the source you read, in 1970 or 1971. Just months or a little over a year after Charles' 1969 investiture as Prince of the Devil, Prince of the Red Dragon, Prince of Satan. At the most widely viewed event in the history of the world at the time. Charles has been over the global environmental movement, the eco-fascist agenda the whole time.
Yeah.
His father, Prince Philip, was largely over it prior to that, and throughout Charles' life until he died, still played a significant role in it. Now it's just Charles. And you can see William and Harry being groomed to be moved into those same positions later on.
Yeah.
Spouting the same propaganda their father and their grandfather did, and their father does, right?
Yeah.
They're being groomed to push all the same buttons in their public speeches, but they don't have the eloquence, they don't have the influence, they don't have the power that Charles has. They never will. So, but they're being groomed as if they would sit on the throne, or as if the United Kingdom would continue. It won't. It'll be destroyed as a nation, like most of the nations of the world. By the time Armageddon is over, most of the nations on the earth will cease to exist. They'll be replaced by new nations after that because of the level of destruction that's going to take place. And there are specific nations, biblically, that will survive, in reduced forms. Israel in an enlarged form, a few other nations, a very tiny number, in a reduced form. And I can come back to that if you want to talk about those, but those are addressed in my Messiah History in the Tribulation Period series. But that being said, the United States, the United Kingdom, the European nations, they're all going away.
Yeah.
Russia, China, they're all going away. So
how close
the
do you
Middle
think
East
we are to
nations are
that?
going away. Years.
Not decades. Years.
No, I don't think we have a decade to Armageddon at this point. I'd be highly surprised if we did.
Yeah.
It's not impossible because I don't think the tribulation week has begun yet, the last 7 years, which concludes with Christ's return and Armageddon and so on. I don't think that it's begun. I could still change my mind. If we see the wars with North Korea and Iran, and I wrote that book, North Korea, Iran, and the Coming World War.
Yeah.
Behold the Red Horse. And I can show a photo of that here in a minute. But if those wars were to start this year, I could still change my mind and say, okay, we must be in the second year of the tribulation week already. Where did I miss the start of the week, right?
Yeah, sure.
Because that corresponds to the second year, the second seal of the apocalypse, when those wars commence. And then, of course, World War III develops very, very quickly at that point, like almost overnight. So, and people look at Ukraine and say, well, World War III has begun. And you've got people all over the world saying that, and in both the fake news media and the real news media, you got people all over the world, including a lot of Christians, saying, we believe World War III has already begun because of what's happening with Ukraine, right? Ukraine and Russia. But let me ask you, are we being bombed over here? Is anyone being bombed outside of Ukraine? Really?
Yeah.
No. This isn't war. Not yet. I mean, peace hasn't been physically taken from the earth. Not yet. People have a lot of concern, right? A lot of restlessness.
Yeah, sure.
And concern.
I'm expecting it every morning. I get up. I'm expecting to see headlines that
mushroom clouds.
Yeah, exactly. I'm expecting to see it. But you're right.
Exactly.
It's still very contained.
That's my point. So we're not in World War III yet. We're looking at a precursor right now with Russia and Ukraine. But we're heading toward World War III. And so I don't think that we're in the tribulation week yet. Could I be proven wrong? It's still possible, yes. I don't think we are.
Okay.
But I don't think we have a decade either until we get to Armageddon at this point. I'd be very surprised because at this point, the whole stage is essentially set. You want to ask me something?
Yeah.
I was wondering if we wanted to get to one of, because this plays in with what we're talking about, or if we wanted to wait until.
Well, let me. I do want to outline.
Question.
I want to outline these agendas for a moment. I gave a long-winded thing just to suggest that Charles is in charge. And I mentioned in our last interview, I think, and it's certainly
it's not Scott Baio, people, when Tim says that.
No, it's not Scott Baio.
That's
but I mentioned.
We all kind of wish it
God
was.
loves Scott Baio. I like the guy.
Right?
Truly, he's an awesome guy. But
you know what's sad, by the way, Tim? I make that joke, but we're all too old for anybody to get what we're talking about. No one's gonna remember Charles in charge. I'm so sorry. Anyways, please continue.
Yeah. So on the agendas, I talk about the UN and public-private partnerships.
Yeah.
The United Nations came out of the League of Nations.
Right.
The League of Nations came out of the Royal Institute of International Affairs primarily.
Really? Okay.
The Royal Institute of International Affairs is also known as Chatham House. It's in London,
Yeah.
and it's headed by who? Charles. The British monarchy's been over it the whole time. So the British monarchy, in other words, was effectively over the creation of the United Nations, and before that, the League of Nations, is my point. There's a lot of influence behind the scenes that the British monarchy has, and now Charles, as the monarch of the United Kingdom, over the crown, even as Prince of Wales, had over the United Nations. So, and an example I like to give of that is the United Nations has a global security lecture series, right? Well, maybe not a lot of people know that, but they give a lecture on a regular basis on global security at the United Nations. Charles delivered the first lecture. He began the lecture series at the United Nations in person. He did that. He has talked about wanting a standing United Nations army, and this is in his biographies, some of them. He's stated he wants to see a United Nations standing army with himself personally as the commander of that army. Who's heard that? So my point is, it's one international entity after another that people look at for the New World Order, for global governance, right? Like the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization now. And by the way, the WHO isn't just about totalitarianism and declaring the next pandemic and undermining your freedom of movement, like declaring lockdowns, for example, in your country or this kind of thing. They're about bringing in a global mark of the beast.
Yeah.
The vaccine so-called passports, which have QR codes, which, by the way, have 3 6s in them, the way that they're scanned in the masking pattern, the 3 sets of nested squares. There are a series of masking patterns applied to read that code technologically. They're called masking patterns. One of those reads each of those sets of squares as 3 3 3 3, like 3 plus 3, 3 3, or 6 6 6. They hide this stuff in these codes. But the point is, they were trying during COVID to make it so you couldn't go into stores to buy or sell without presenting that passport, right? Without having scanned in various places in the world, to limit your freedom of movement and transport without those passports, right? Well, the WHO can come in if they sign this treaty that the Biden, regime is trying to stealthily bring down upon the United States, and other world leaders are trying to bring down upon their populaces. The WHO could go in and say, now everyone has to have something like this quote unquote vaccine passport, only we'll call it a universal digital ID or something like that instead. And then the next step will be, we'll tattoo it to your body, or we'll do that and stick a chip with it, in it, in your hand or your forehead or something like that, right? So the point is, all of that is being conducted under who? Charles. This is what the audience needs to understand. He's at the top of the whole thing. Okay, so when people go and look at our former interview where I gave actual evidence that he's the Antichrist spoken of in Revelation 13 as the first beast, his heraldic achievement, his coat of arms, has the literal imagery of that first beast of Revelation 13 on it. And let me just show quickly from my screen, and then I'm going to come back to my main point on all this. Right. I just want the audience to not be lost by this conversation. So, folks, see the prior interview with the Gosslings, where I'd go into all of this, but briefly, this is the little horn with human eyes, the unicorn with human eyes of Daniel 7. The beast with feet like a bear, body like a leopard, mouth like a lion of Revelation 13, the first beast. The fiery red dragon that gives that beast his power, throne, and great authority, that per Revelation chapter 12 is also known as Satan himself, and as the serpent who deceived Eve in the Garden of Eden. This symbol around the neck of the red dragon, the neck of the unicorn, the neck of the beast with feet like a bear, body like a leopard, mouth like a lion, the neck of the corporate coat of arms or heraldic achievement right here. So it has its own head, the overall heraldic achievement. So this is the neck of it, if you will. This symbol around each of these beasts and this corporate beast is the label of the eldest son, or the label of the heir apparent, in this case, label of the eldest son. And it specifically represents Charles. So in other words, this overall heraldic achievement, as well as the individual beasts on it, specifically represent Charles himself. So we showed that in the last interview. Then we talked about the name calculation, this right here, showing that the title, Prince Charles of Wales or Charles Prince of Wales, doesn't matter how you order it in both English and Hebrew, Nasiq Charles of Wales, Works out to exactly 666 in both Hebrew and English. Mathematically, that's impossible. From a statistical perspective, it can't ever happen, but you're looking at it. It happened right here in 2 languages. So Charles has the name calculation in Hebrew and in English. And additionally, of course, he has the imagery. That alone is enough to identify him biblically as the Antichrist. And so let me stop my screen sharing here for a moment. The point I want to make is these agendas, right? They want to save the world, supposedly.
Yeah.
From the World Health Organization, save us from pandemics, and apparently also from climate change by calling it a global health emergency. And by that, they mean Gaia, Mother Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Mother Earth's health, not human health, nature's health. Okay.
Yeah.
The way they're defining it, and their definitions are frauds. Carbon, for example, is very good for nature.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oxygen is needed by us and by animal life, right? Carbon dioxide is needed by plant life. The more carbon dioxide we get in our atmosphere, at the rate that life on Earth produces it, including humanity, even with all our industrial base, does not overwhelm plant life. Instead, it makes plant life grow more. And plant life would become lush on Earth compared to how it is now if we had more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And we'd also have more oxygen. And what happens with more oxygen? Animal and human life, we grow larger, stronger, we live longer, we're healthier, there's less disease, in fact. That's one reason they give people oxygen when they've got bacterial infections, for example, is to help the body fight that and to overcome it. It increases cellular energy and does other things in the body that is toxic to bacteria. So the point is, life on Earth would thrive with more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. What they're producing is death, in effect, by reducing life on Earth, by this climate scam with reducing carbon emissions, this kind of thing. I mention that because when they're talking about transitioning to a green economy, here's the reality. The existing energy grids planet-wide, including in the United States, cannot begin, not even start, to accommodate the additional electricity that would need to be on those grids to power electric vehicles for charging.
Yeah.
It would take decades to build that out, not a few years, not a decade, but multiple decades. We're talking on the order of 30 to 50 years.
Yeah.
Probably, to build that out. So that's the first issue. It's a mirage that they're selling to the public, even if they could produce all the electric cars that the world would need today and give them away.
Yeah.
They can't and even if they could produce the electricity with, all kinds of new nuclear power plants, for example, they couldn't actually put the power on the grids. Okay. So that should tell you right off the bat, how do they solve that? They eliminate the demand for the electricity. How do they eliminate the demand? Oh, well, we're going to come back to that. Okay. So that's the first thing. Second thing is China controls a lot of the rare earths, and the lithium and so forth. We don't have the industrial capacity to produce that stuff in the West. Even Russia doesn't have most of it.
Really?
China has a lot of it at this point. They've bought up our capacities. Even if we create a bunch of new functioning lithium mines and build all that out, plus start to mine our own rare earths and refine them and so forth again, that takes years and years and years to do.
Yeah.
We can't produce the raw materials to produce the batteries. And there is new technology coming, new batteries like solid state batteries and things that don't require some of those rare earths, some of those minerals, some don't require lithium at all. That are superior batteries. Those are coming, but for those to be commercialized, you're talking 4 years to a decade minimum for those to begin to be commercialized in a serious way. So we don't have the capacity to produce the batteries necessary for the vehicles. Okay. So we don't have the grid. We don't have the capacity for the batteries. We're taking production offline in terms of gas and coal. We're retiring older plants rather than replacing them as they need to be retired, or nursemaiding them along until they can be replaced. There's nothing on the grid to replace them, and green energy can't do it. It can't be brought on fast enough. So some small percentage, maybe 4 or 5% of green energy projects have succeeded to date. If they succeed with 100% of the projects that they're claiming to the public that they're going to bring online, that still would not be enough to produce the additional electricity necessary to charge all the cars for the existing human population, just to replace the cars that are on the road.
Yeah.
But if only 1/20th of that, let's say, actually succeeds, right? What then? And how about the fact that we don't have the battery storage for wind and solar to use those things off peak? You know, for example, when the sun's not shining, to produce the electricity with the existing solar panel technologies, the ones primarily in use, or wind, you know, the wind's not blowing, so nothing's getting generated. We're not storing what does get generated, so we use it when it's there, and when it's not there, there's nothing to use, right?
Yep.
Okay, so we have brownouts on the grid. Well, if you get enough brownouts on the grid, what happens? The whole grid collapses, literally. The transformers fry. It only takes, and we've got many transformers, you know, on our grid, just the United States, for example. Many transformers. Fewer than 10, hypothetically, if they go offline, cause the whole grid to fail and fry.
Yeah.
Wow.
I can see that.
And when the major transformers fail and fry, and we're not even talking an EMP strike, we don't produce them in the United States, and they take years to build.
Of course.
They weigh hundreds of thousands
Why would
of pounds,
we?
if I remember right.
Why would we build our own transformers?
We import them, right? Yeah, we got to import them.
Oh my gosh.
So if those go, and all of a sudden the electricity is back up, well, there's no grid to carry it. How long does it take to repair the grid? Between 1 and 10 years. How long does it take for most of the U.S. population to die? Less than a year.
Yeah.
From starvation and deprivation. The cities become kill boxes at that point.
Oh, yeah.
Why do I bring that all up? So if we look at that and they say they want to save the world with this quick transition and brainwash everybody into eco-fascism and give children, you know, conniptions from mental disorders, you know, climate nightmares that they have in their sleep, which is what they're trying to do.
Yep.
I don't actually even think that's an exaggeration at this point. I mean, when my son was a boy, he's now a man, they were trying to do that in our local schools.
Oh,
to
yeah.
brainwash children into eco-fascist.
Oh, if you
stuff.
watch Nickelodeon in the early 90s and late 80s and mid 90s when we were growing up. Yeah, Captain Planet, you know, everybody's a tree, you know, like, I mean,
well,
the brainwashing has been going on forever.
Well, and you can go back and look at the predictions of Prince Charles, Al Gore, other people stating by such and such a date, this will happen.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if we don't get our emissions way down suddenly.
Yeah.
All those dates have expired, by the way.
Yeah.
Like years and years ago. So they keep moving the target.
I remember laughing, or I laugh at it now, but like I remember basically buying the Kool-Aid when I was like 9 years old, you know, because you're watching, you know, Nickelodeon and, oh no, I got to cut up the 6-pack rings or else all the fish are going to die in the ocean when it gets dumped.
A sea turtle.
So I went into the kitchen and I started cutting them up and my mom was like, what are you doing? You know, and she's like, I'm saving the fish.
I'm saving the world, Mom.
Yeah, and I never will forget my mom was like, both our parents were pretty based. And I remember mom just like rolling her eyes and be like, whatever. Go do your homework. You know?
Yes.
Parents, you gotta watch out for this stuff, man.
I'm going to keep the frog warm by boiling it slowly in this bath of water.
I mean, well, you know, that's the like.
I'm going to save the frog from the cold.
You know, I know people who are like in their 20s and early 30s who like we travel in these circles where like we all get it and we're like, oh yeah, you know, this is obviously a bunch of horse crap, you know, this eco-fascism. But I mean, we lose perspective of like a lot of people really want this. They really believe it. They have been brainwashed and convinced that this is the way to go. And they hate humanity. They hate themselves. They resent humanity. And they do want all of us to die off in this like useful idiot vainglory that they're going to be left behind, that they're not going to face the wall, you know, or be slaughtered by AI, because who can make war with the beast, you know? And it's like this whole system, you know, that they're trying to ram down society's throats and intentionally demolishing the economy in order to accomplish. It's like it works really well when there are only 500 million of you left over, like the Georgia Guidestones predicted. But you can't talk about that anymore because those got blown up. So
yeah, so even that is not intended to work really well, and I'll come back to that. I mean, that's another layer of the facade. So in this case, when we're talking about global energy and we look at the practicalities of what they're proposing rather than the propaganda of what they're proposing, what we discover is that it's impossible. There is no practicality to it. It cannot be done. And even if we could bring nuclear plant after nuclear plant with newer fission technologies online today, and they should be doing that, even if we could, we can't build them fast enough yet to replace what's being retired off the grid, which means the grid is becoming more and more unstable because of brownouts like we see in California, for example, right?
Yeah.
And so what does Newsom say? You know, he tells people initially, well, you can have cars by, what was it, 2035? I forget what year he chose now. We're going to phase out all gasoline sales, gasoline-powered vehicle sales. Maybe look at lawnmowers and gasoline-powered yard equipment and so forth as well, to phase all that out and go with just electric devices. And it's not going to be legal to sell gasoline-powered stuff in California, for example, and whatever year it is. I think he said 2035. People can check me on that. But then what does he do? Like days later, oh, don't plug your electric car into the grid during these hours because it might create a brownout situation here in California. So yeah, you're going to have electric cars, but the ones that are out there, by the way, we don't have enough ability to charge those during the day. So be a nice little drone and plug it in off hours and don't drive in the meantime, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So,
and also eat your bugs, even though it's going to kill you because you can't digest bug shells.
And then he gets in his gas-powered vehicle and drives to the
or his G5.
Yeah. Drives to the governor's mansion, or maybe takes a helicopter or something. However he gets around.
All right. So here's the real agenda that people need to see, and you can look at Sri Lanka even before getting into the energy grid stuff, right?
Oh, really?
They pushed, and this was they got a WEF stooge as president of Sri Lanka, and through him they pushed all organic farming. Why? To eliminate artificial fertilizers that are based on nitrogen, for example, and natural gas, as a way of eliminating fossil fuel usage. A lot of our artificial fertilizer requires natural gas to produce today. And when they're not using that, they need to use, for example, the natural stuff produced from cattle, like the nitrogen runoff, the high nitrogen natural stuff from cattle and other animals. But what they discovered when they switched to their whole organic approach to try to save the environment is they literally couldn't produce enough food. So while Sri Lanka was doing great, producing more and more for itself and starting to export more and more, and the economy was going up, this WEF stooge comes along and says, I've got a better idea. Let's go all organic and get rid of the synthetic fertilizers, right? None of this has to do with green energy yet, right? This was just trying to get away from use of natural gas, really, and lowering their so-called carbon footprint. So what happens? Quickly, you've got revolution in Sri Lanka. The president's fleeing, literally. The government's being overrun. The public is furious. I mean, the whole public. Because now their economy is tanked. People are going to starve. They can't produce the food they need for themselves, right? So what's the real model here? The real model is we dupe the public into going for this. And by the way, when they take these plants offline, it can take years to bring this stuff back online if it can be done at all.
Jeez.
We dupe the public. We take these things offline till things are destabilized. And by the way, destroying trains, you know, a lot of the diesel fuel is transported by trains in the United States. A lot of our trucking runs on diesel fuel. To transport our goods. You take the trains offline, you remove the diesel fuel, so there's not enough of it.
The whole country runs on
transportation. You break down the transportation infrastructure because of lack of fossil fuels. And with the breakdown of the transportation infrastructure goes the breakdown of food transport. So even if you can produce the food, and I just explained that Sri Lanka couldn't by giving up, synthetic fertilizers, for example. Even if you can produce the food, you can't transport it.
Yes.
What happens then? Cities starve.
Yeah, all those Clinton archipelagos go under. You bring up something that I was made aware of last year. Peter Zehan's book, The End of the World is Just the Beginning, where he talks about that, how like we're living in the last days of the American empire, because America, we're run on diesel, just like you're talking about, Tim.
Yep.
And when diesel runs out, the whole infrastructure, doesn't matter what your solar plant is or your nuclear plant or your Tesla, all the infrastructure that undergirds everything is maintained by the transportation by diesel, including the food. It's a great point you're making.
And we've seen dozens and dozens of destructions of food processing plants. Now we're seeing all these train derailments. We're seeing toxins released into the environment.
Yep.
Which, by the way, the thing that happened in Palestine or Palestine, East Palestine.
East Palestine. That was one of our Patreon questions.
Yeah,
actually.
that's one of our Patreon questions I wanted to ask.
Yeah, I mean, that's a toxic cloud that has poisoned the soil.
Yeah.
Not just the water table, for tens, if not hundreds of miles around. So that the food probably won't be safe to eat. Even the animals that can survive, and a lot of them are dying, right? The food won't be safe to eat. They've destroyed the ability to produce safe food in a significant area of the country with that. And now we're seeing more derailments, right? They're telling people shelter in place. They told people it was safe to stay where they are. In Palestine, you're going to see those people dying, in the near future, in the next few years, from what's already been breathed in by them.
Yep.
And so my point is this: they're collapsing the energy infrastructure. That collapses the food infrastructure. And it isn't happening only in the United States. They're doing this throughout Europe. They're doing it everywhere they can in the world that they can get away with it. Same arguments, same stuff. Who's rebelling against it? China, Russia. Some of the nations in the Middle East are waking up to this, right? They're forming a new axis.
Yep.
So they're not all on board with it. So how do they solve that? How do the elites who are trying to depopulate the world, that's their real goal. Their goal isn't to save the environment. That's why they don't care about what happened in East Palestine. Okay? Their goal isn't to save the environment. They know long enough period of time passes, life will take hold again, unless it's nuclear radiation, right?
Yeah.
And even then, they're not entirely sure. Like Chernobyl's got all these dogs with slight genetic changes, but the dogs look more or less normal. Living around Chernobyl. Can humans adapt like that? We don't know.
Yeah.
So the point is, they want to depopulate the world. If you understand that their goal is to kill you, and this is where I'm going to get into the real heart of the agenda. If you understand that their goal is to kill humanity off, almost all of us, and then take what remains, all of our assets, all of our land, etc., what hasn't been destroyed, and that's why they don't want warfare, to take what remains for themselves and then to enslave the surviving human population, then you're beginning to understand what they're really doing. So how do we know this is what they're doing? You can look at the additives in food. What do the artificial additives do? They reduce fertility. They reduce sperm counts in males. They reduce fertility in women. You can look at all the microplastics in the environment, which have some of those toxins, as well as the chemicals in nonstick cookware that became so popular. What do all of those things do? They reduce fertility. And in some cases, they increase cancers.
Yeah.
Those microplastics that are throughout the environment now. In every single case, it doesn't matter what you look at. Every single thing you look at, they're reducing fertility and population growth. Why are they pushing sexual Satanism from the top down? Well, because sodomites don't reproduce.
That's right.
Yep.
Lesbians
That's exactly
don't
right.
reproduce.
Yep.
And what you can't reproduce, you recruit.
Yeah. And mutilated children and adults who become so-called transgenders, as well as certifiable
chemically
lunatics,
castrated. Yeah.
And mental lunatics.
Yep.
They don't reproduce.
Yeah. They shall
And
inherit the
great-
kingdom of hell.
Yep.
That is going to be this planet.
They become great Fourth Reich Nazis, a lot of them. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. I mean that exactly how it sounds.
Yeah.
They become the next version of Hitler Youth.
Yep.
And you can see how they're behaving, right, toward pro-life centers and so forth.
Yes.
Antifa fascists, BLM, communist BLM, terrorists, all of them.
And the state
out there.
sponsors them.
Yeah, state sponsored.
The state
And
sponsors
protects them.
right?
Like, I mean, if you look back, Tim, I'll tell you the moment where I realized that not only are this is going to sound bad, but not only are the cops not on your side, and the military is not on your side either, because they are controlled. Their paychecks are controlled by the people who already hate you and want to replace you. look at those protests, those Patriot Prayer protests from like the 2017, 2018 era. And then when Antifa shows up, you know, Patriot Prayer, any of those conservative pro-Trump guys, you know, they all have to go through the checkpoints and they get patted down and they play by the rules. And then they all form their little protest thing. And then here comes the black bloc steamrolling right through the barricades, and the police are told not to interfere. And they don't interfere. So like, if you ever think that like those people are here to protect you and they're going to save you and, you know, they're going to cross the Rubicon, no, they ain't, baby, because you already saw it. You know, they ain't here for you.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, so you're absolutely right. There is like a Fourth Reich that is being
That's why it's illegal
formulated.
to pray outside of an abortion.
abortion
You can't
mill,
stand
yeah.
across the
Is it
street. and
really?
play. It is in UK.
Oh, I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't even silently pray across the street from an abortion clinic.
There needs to be a neo-Normandy. I'm just saying.
But here in the US, you can burn down a courthouse
right
in protest,
or
and
a
you're
pro-life
peaceful
center,
protesting.
or a
Mhm.
pro-life
pregnancy
center, right?
pregnancy crisis centers.
Yeah.
Where's the justice?
Pregnancy
Those people were not
crisis.
hunted down and held to, you know,
Mhm.
accountability.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, and you
Hey,
got a weaponized FBI going in like the Gestapo, you know,
Yep.
against pro-life families,
Yep.
Mhm.
you know, and
Yep.
adults, you know,
Yeah.
they're terrorizing children literally and wives literally.
labeling parents as domestic terrorists because they speak out at city council meetings against this agenda.
Well, and in Canada, they'll take your parents away from your kids if you interfere with your kids being able to get the whack. You know.
Well, you got I think a 16-year-old, but a Roman Catholic young man in Canada who in school came out at a Roman Catholic school, no less, came out against males in female bathrooms.
Mm-hmm. And he was arrested.
And they had him arrested twice and
Yeah, of
expelled from
course.
school.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So in other words, you've got these and Roman Catholicism is not biblical Christianity, but you've got these compromising religious entities. And it's not just Roman Catholicism. You can look at the Anglican Protestant Church, you know, top down, corrupted and just as bad.
Tim Cohen, author of The AntiChrist and a Cup of Tea, as well as North Korea, Iran, and the Coming World War, Behold a Red Horse, and also the Solar Apocalypse series, which is coming out. Check out your channel.
And 37 other books.
Yeah, and 37 of other
two
things.
other multi-volume series and other books. There's a book on the Exodus coming that identifies all of the ancient major Egyptian participants in ancient Israel's history. There are some books not mentioned, so just rapidly, A Last Days Polemic, a book on the Mark of the Beast, a book on the depopulation, transhumanist, and enslavement agenda.
Nice.
Some unenumerated volumes on the apocalypse. I got a whole book coming on the X-Files series, for example.
Good.
That really explains it, because that confuses a lot of people, that series, but it's part of the solar apocalypse series. So some books like that, unenumerated volumes coming. Then, like I said, 3 multi-volume series, the Messiah History and the Tribulation Period series. But anyway, people can order the second edition, the Antichrist Cup of Tea now. Will soon ship.
Yeah.
And a lot of
and everybody
shocking
should
things coming.
Everybody, you know, everybody should order this book to support you and what you've been doing. And it's, you know, it's something that is 30 years in the making, man. Like, you know, people should support you for that sort of thing. That's a lot of work.
People don't know this. They assume I'm an author out there trying to make a bunch of money. I've devoted hundreds of thousands of my personal resources to this. I devote.
Those people have no idea.
Made zero.
We're a couple of authors, and I'll tell you, you're lucky if you make zero. You don't get into the writing books game to make money. You know,
no, I give everything to this effort, and in fact, I invite people, if they want to help put these books like the Antichrist and the Cup of Tea into the hands of pastors, and church leaders throughout the world at no charge, come along with the money. I know there are Christians out there who have it, and we'll do it at no charge to all the pastors in the world. I invite people to contact Prophecy House and me to do that.
Yes. So you heard it here first, folks. For all the other people who are making those comments, email him, you know, and he will hook your pastor up. Tim Cohen, thank you for being here. We would love to get you back in May. Let's stay in touch. And, man, be well, and thank you again.
Yeah. Thank you. God bless.
All right.
Hey, if you guys have been enjoying this interview and you'd like to hear the rest of it, including some really down and dirty stuff that we're not allowed to say here on YouTube, head over to patreon.com/the Gosslings. We'd love to have your support there and share exclusive content with you.
That's right. Keep it cool. And remember, These are interviews that strike down the dark.
They do indeed strike down the darkness. They strike down all the darkness.
That's right. Strike it down hard.
So hard.
So hard.
Yeah.
No
Yep.
sound.
There we go.
Yeah.
Look at this big old thing. What is this? What is this doing? Oh my gosh. We are just absolutely taxing this completely out. Let me shut this off. I think we might be overlooking it. Can you see us? No. Maybe. I don't know.
Okay,
No
you guys
sound
can hear
again.
us? We good?
No, they can't. They can't see. They should be able to hear
Good,
us. I
good.
mean, I see. Let's see.
We're working on it.
Hello. And I'm sure this will.
All right, and they can see and hear us.
And they
There we
can
go.
see and hear us.
I think it was
Fantastic.
Restream. We've where we're like, oh, I don't know.
We're absolutely
know.
taxing this on and off.
Yeah.
We might just have to.
Yes. No kidding.
They are trying to silence the truth, folks. That's what's going on here.
Thanks, Elon.
My goodness gracious. This thing is slow. All right. What do you guys think? What do you guys think of our second interview with Tim? Tim Cohen.
Yeah, that was it was pretty intense. And there was probably at least 45, 50 minutes of material that didn't make the
at
public
least
cut.
an hour.
Yeah, probably an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. We
At least an hour.
we originally were doing these Cactus, you're taking off. See you, buddy.
Cactus, have a great night, man.
Have a good night, Cactus. Originally we were doing these at 5 p.m., but we kept finding that like our interviews would go over so much that we had to push these back to 6 p.m. Just so we weren't late. And we were still late last week with,
and it creates a whole new dilemma too, because we have to be able to wrap all this up by a certain time tonight.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, we gotta jet. We're so far.
We gotta bounce,
out
but
of
before we do, we want to give a shout out to our patrons, starting with
Yes.
our press field level patron,
Yes.
Lisa S.
Lisa gets the horn.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And,
thank you, Lisa.
Absolutely, Lisa. Appreciate your generous support. And also our Hemingway level patrons,
Yeah.
Jody S. And American Cars.
American Cars, baby.
Who we saw on the chat tonight.
Who always has our back. He's super cool, too.
Absolutely. And as always, our robust support base of Orwell level patrons, Karen B, K9 Training, Mama Shaw, Cascadian Breeze, Gabe Bella Music, Christy D, Mike Fisher, Carol J, Jamie J, Sean E, Sunny S, who I saw in the chat as well tonight, Michelle B, Charlotte. Guys, thank you so much for keeping us going.
And Cheryl, we just had a new one join us actually in the first half.
Awesome.
Cheryl,
awesome.
So
fantastic. Thank you. Well, we had a fantastic interview before we went live tonight, and we're going to have that up on the Patreon tomorrow. I'm going to have that up. And should we tell them who it is?
Yeah, why not? I got the book.
Yeah. We interviewed Elisa Childers, Live Your Truth and Other Lies. You guys are going to love this interview. It is super based, and the whole unedited interview will be on Patreon tomorrow. And then if you want, and of course, if you're not a patron, we'd suggest you become one so you can enjoy all the stuff a week in advance, including all the exclusive. I'm going to put our QR code up here. Even though I know Tim said that like these little squares on the corners of QR codes may be something akin to what the Mark of the Beast will actually be. This is not. This one is not. You can rest assured that our Patreon QR code is not the mark of Prince Charles III. Excuse me, King Charles III.
Yeah.
But we'd love your support over there if you want to go over there and check us out. Multiple levels. And I think that is all.
Yeah, well, we got the Teespring page.
Oh, the Teespring page.
And we just came up with a bunch of really cool stuff for that. Nick and I had so much fun. We had like 4 hours yesterday where all we did was like design all this cool stuff that like we ended up ordering some of it because like we're nerds.
Yeah. We like to smell our own farts.
I mean,
so we ordered some of our own merch. We'd like for you to smell our farts too. So if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and
and they say I'm the naughty one.
Get yourself a fart mug and join us for our fart toast next week.
Get your fart duffel and your collection of fart shirts. Goss farts.
Yes, that's right. Well, real quick, I'm going to go back to the chat here so we can see what's going on.
Not scripted, folks.
Not scripted at all.
Because that writer would be fired.
No, we're all about authenticity.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh my goodness gracious. Diane Lynn says, great stream tonight. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Diane.
Appreciate that. Kathy loved it. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. And Chris, Tricky, Renee, Kevin, Kiro C, Brian Jones, Lefty.
Yeah.
Great to see these names again. And it was awesome hanging with you guys in the chat. And we really hope you guys have a blessed week.
Yeah.
I don't think I have anything else, man. You want to do it?
Yeah, the last thing, Sharon Lepke asked, how can I get Tim Cohen's AntiChrist, I guess the second edition? Go to prophecyhouse.com. That's his website. It should be in the show notes below also. And you can order it there. His first edition is out of print, so it's super expensive. But his second edition is like $50.
Yeah.
And I think it should be released like no later than June, like late June.
Yeah, he said June.
That.
Yeah,
so
should be out.
And
get your orders in. The links in the show notes, in the description of the video.
Yeah, so you should be able to find it there. A lot of people get confused. They think like, oh, his book's so expensive. It's like, no, that's the first edition. It's out of print. And all those out of print books are super expensive. So $50. Anyways.
Totally worth it.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Nick.
We are the Gosslings. Go forth.
And strike down the darkness.
Adios, muchachos.
See you next week, guys.